Well, we're finally about to see quite a significant change in the overall pattern as we go towards the upcoming weekend. Thanks for clicking on to the Wednesday edition of Logan's European Outlook. This is the animation of Storm Oscar that looks as if it may have been a record breaker for Madeira and indeed Portugal as a country, producing well over 600, yeah, that's right, 600 millimeters of rain within just a single 24-hour period. So an area of low pressure, fairly deep area of low pressure at that, and unusually far south and position anchored and spinning just to the northwest of the island of Madeira. We also had impacts on the Azores as well as the Western Canaries. But it's as that frontal system kind of moved across the island of Madeira, helped by topography, warm, moist air traveling up from an even warmer source region, all came together to produce almost the perfect scenario in terms of precipitation here. So, of course, that cold front plugging warm, moist air from the deep tropical Atlantic, lifting it north, and of course, with the high elevation mountains, basically, as soon as you reach the island of Madeira, the landscape just rises, and what happens is all that warm, moist, rich air gets driven up the hill slopes of the island, and of course, you get tremendous amounts of rainfall, and that is exactly what we've seen taking place. And it looks as if a new Portuguese rainfall record has been achieved. If this source here proves correct, it shows that some sites in excess of 604.3 millimeters of rain within a 24-hour period, folks. That is an astonishing amount of rainfall. And one of the contributing factors to, I think, all this is thanks to the current very warm tropical and eastern and northeastern Atlantic Ocean. So really stretching from the Cape Verde Islands, the equatorial region of the Atlantic, up through the Canaries, up the western side of Iberia, and towards the UK. We've got some very, very warm waters compared to average. And of course, with that system over that warm water likely enhanced the heavy precip within that area of low pressure and produced the record-breaking amounts of rainfall in the island of Madeira. And like I say, western portions of the Canaries as well as the Azores had impacts on that. But look at this here. Look at the amount of warm water that we've got at play at the moment here. Very significant amounts of warmth. And, if you have looked at my June forecast and also my summer forecast, I have highlighted the fact that this very warm waters, if we start to see the heights, i.e., the pressure field start to lower, as I expected to do so as we progress later in the June, July, and August, this warm water could enhance the rainfall over western portions of Europe through the middle and second half of the summer. And of course, we only have to look at the tropical Pacific. You can see here that the warming is starting to intensify on the west coast of South America. We're starting to see that little bit of a push advance westwards over the equatorial Pacific of that warm water, and that highlights that the El Nino is imminent in terms of declaring that. We also are starting to see warming of the North Pacific as well, so we're starting to kind of lose that horseshoe that we had a month or so ago over the North Pacific, that cold pool stretching from the south shore of Alaska down the west coast of North America out towards Hawaii. Looks as if we're now starting to see that warming taking place here, because sometimes when you've got the cold PDO backdrop versus the developing El Nino, the cold PDO can actually kind of fight against the development of the El Nino, the warming over the eastern portion of the Pacific. But we're starting to lose that, and I think we are going to start to see this El Nino really developing. And I think anyway that as this El Nino develops, we'll start to see the feedback to the atmosphere, the response with the Mann-Julian oscillation, which I think is dictating the pattern at the moment, actually, even in our part of the world. But also this warm fuel ready to get tapped if of course, we've got the area of high pressure, and I think that is the reason why we've seen such strong warming to the west of the UK in the last month or so, is that stable area of sinking over this region of the North Atlantic has allowed the ocean to warm up quite significantly in recent times. But it's as we press through the summer, I believe anyway, we're going to start to see a reversal where we lose the high pressure to the north, low pressure to the south. We then build the pressure to the south, so we're going to start to heat things up across Iberia, the Mediterranean, southern Europe, Central Europe. But also, I think the low that has been so dominant across the south then starts to migrate up towards the region between Iceland and the UK, possibly even over the UK for the month of July and even into the month of August. If that happens, I think we're going to see this warm water enhance the amount of rainfall that we see during the second half of the summer. That is the ideas that I've got. That is the forecast that I've got. We will wait and see if that happens, if that materializes. But certainly there is a lot of warm water in the North Atlantic, particularly the eastern side of the Atlantic. Look at how cool actually the western side of the North Atlantic is. That's rather interesting, isn't it? And let's have a quick check back at other tweets that I happen to put out. London, this is interesting. London Heathrow, this is from London and Southeast Weather, and quite an interesting temperature regime. Up until now, the highest temperature at Heathrow is 22.9 Celsius, and we have not seen 22.9. In fact, we had that in 2013. That's quite interesting, actually, isn't it? But I don't think we've had anything close to that since that. So the last time, you have to go all the way back to 2013, the last time Heathrow had a temperature as low for this time of the year as of the 6th of June. And there's no year all the way back to 2007, with the exceptions of that 2013, where we've had such a cool maximum for the year so far at this typically warm spot within the west side of London. So thanks to London and Southeast Weather for that interesting tweet. This is another interesting one as well. Remember, we've had the north, the north anchored area of high pressure, low pressure to the south. It kind of resembles somewhat 2018 in terms of the overall setup. But our friends at World Climate Service highlighted that the Scandinavian Greenland dipole, courtesy of Simon Lee, was strongly negative in the month of May. So this is correlating to the month of May after being strongly positive in the month of March. Since 1950, the only year with a similar reversal, in terms of like the negative NAO setup, is 2018. So the only year since 1950 is 2018, but the Atlantic sea surface temperatures could not be any different. And if you look at that, this is of course May of this year. Look at all the warmth, as I've already made mention of. Look at 2018, it's complete opposite. And of course 2018 was a very, very hot, dry summer. So is there any correlation to this? Possibly. But developing El Nino, very warm sea surface temperatures, I would not be surprised if we see a very interesting mid and second half of the summer coming up. That is my hunch anyway, and I'm sticking to it. Cape values are going to start to rise. What does that mean? It's basically the level of energy within the atmosphere. As this area of low pressure starts to push up towards the UK, remember in yesterday's video, I highlight Mawar, the typhoon over the western portion of the Pacific, strengthening the jet stream over the Pacific Ocean. Then that sets the wheels in motion in terms of the reshaping, recasting the atmosphere over North America. In turn, we see the strengthening of the jet stream over the Atlantic. That gives that area of low pressure that developed to the west-northwest of the Canaries, Madeira, Azores. That gives that a bit of a kick, pushes it up towards the UK, weakens the high, but it actually forces the high to lift a bit further north. But what that is doing is, instead of having a mean ridge to the northwest of the UK and keeping that wind circulation coming in off the North Sea, keeping things very, very cool, very, very disappointing for the time of year, 12, 13 Celsius, has been, a common temperature anywhere from Kent all the way up to Aberdeenshire over the last few weeks. what we're going to see is that area of high pressure shifting a little bit further towards the north and northeast. With the presence of that low coming up from the south, we're going to then start to pull in something considerably warmer and more humid as we push towards the upcoming weekend. But as it does so, it raises the volatility within the atmosphere. And as you can see here, as we start to see this area of low pressure lift north, it then forces the energy as the temperatures rise, as the humidity rises at the surface. It's like a boiling pot. We'll start to see this rise within the atmosphere, this lift. The buildup of energy then is forced in the cumulonimbus clouds, thunderstorms, damaging wind, hail, gusty winds, possible funnel clouds. But it's going to be a very interesting upcoming weekend, that's for sure, for the UK. You notice here that the initial warmth and the build-up happens over the near continent, so Germany, the Low Countries, possibly northern France. Then, as we press towards the weekend, we're going to see the temperature in the southeast go from like 12, 13 Celsius all of a sudden to the upper 20s. That's going to be a dramatic change. London to Cambridge, where temperatures have been very disappointing, as I've just showed you, we're going to see the temperatures rising, the humidity rises, and therefore the increase in energy means that we're going to start to see the showers and storms developing here, particularly so Sunday afternoon. Look at this here. Look at the Cape values rise. So that just basically illustrates the energy within the atmosphere, really from just north of London up through Cambridgeshire, Lincolnshire, Nottinghamshire, up into, really up, up the spine of the Pennines to the east of the Pennines, all the way up to the Scottish borders. That is where we're going to see potentially disruptive thunderstorms as we push through the upcoming weekend here. And like I say, in the sunshine, we are going to see the temperatures knock on the door of 30 Celsius, I think, somewhere between London and Cambridge this upcoming weekend, possibly as early as Friday, but I think it's going to be either Saturday or Sunday. So it's going to be interesting to see how lively those thunderstorms become. And of course, being bone dry over the last 3 or 4 weeks, we are going to start to see a change taking place. Now, actually, in the Met Office deep dive yesterday, Aidan McGivern was actually highlighting how the cloud base is actually relatively high up at about 5,000 feet. Therefore, the higher the cloud base, the in a sense, the limitation of the rainfall, you have a lower cloud base with, of course, 40, 50,000 foot tar and cumulonimbus clouds. You tend to have more release of water to the surface, but if you have a higher cloud base, you do tend to get some of that precipitation kind of evaporates through the column before it reaches the surface. So it'll be interesting to see how much rainfall we get, but I would not be surprised if we see flash flood situation in parts of eastern England this upcoming weekend, and that is a very different accumulated precipitation chart compared to what we've seen in the last several weeks. More precipitation, as you can see, across the continent of Europe. The NAO look is negative, it's going up towards neutral, and then you notice here it goes back into negative territory once again. And remember what I've already said here, that the possibility of having that high drift up towards Greenland during the middle and second half of June will be something that we need to keep an eye on. Another chilly day, another cool day across the board. Only the south and southwest of the UK is seeing the temperatures into the low 20s. But 12, 13, 14 Celsius quite widely across the UK. That is rather chilly for the 7th of June, that's for sure. But we are going to see a big change in the overall temperature regime as we push towards the weekend. Big dramatic turnaround, certainly for south and eastern areas. So thanks for watching. I do appreciate it. Please hit the like button, of course, share with your friends and family, and subscribe to the channel for more daily weather content. Appreciate your view. Enjoy the rest of your Wednesday. See you again, hopefully tomorrow, with more. Bye for now.